Trailnet celebrates 35 years. That story next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Today we're helping Trailnet celebrate its 35th year, the past, present, and future. Trailnet is a nonprofit that really works towards improving walking, biking, and transit in the area, and two people here are going to explain all that to us. We have Trailnet CEO Cindy Mintz and Justin Seaton, who handles their marketing and communications. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Steve.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Did you have a big party?
We did. We had a birthday celebration. We had it over at the Foundry, and it was really terrific. So thank you for inviting us. Trailnet, our mission is to lead in fostering healthy, active, and vibrant communities.
Right. I want to read your mission statement. Not that
great.
I need to read it to you, because I know you have it memorized. But just what you're saying, your mission is to lead in fostering healthy, active, and vibrant communities where walking, bicycling, and the use of public transit are a way of life. Does every community have a Trailnet?
Well, our mission is region-wide, so we try and serve the region. So St. Louis City, St. Louis County, we do some work in Jefferson County, but
I didn't even mean
not
region,
everybody has it.
And maybe you can't even answer this. I was just wondering if every decent-sized city, because I'm guessing they don't.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily, our function is also as an advocate. And so statewide, there are some partners that we have. In Columbia, they have an organization much like Trailnet in Kansas City, Springfield.
Well, it's much needed, and I can't imagine what this metro area would be like without it. But before we go any farther, we have a very short video, Justin, that you did.
That's
and
right.
I just want to share it with our audience. It kind of gives an overview. It's just about a minute long. Let's take a look.
Kind of the voice for people who want to get around outside of cars, want to get around in a healthy way, in a way that's good for the environment, in a way that supports the life they're trying to live. I especially like our community rides. They're opportunities for people in the city of St. Louis to get on bikes. We've got docents and tour guides from the Missouri History Museum who will bring us around the city and show us things that are all on one theme. We're filling the streets of St. Louis with people on bikes and making sure that in the eyes of our neighbors, like, this is a represented community. There are people who want to be on bikes, who want to be on foot, who want to be using sidewalks. So we want to be the starting point for people to make St. Louis a place that feels welcoming for new people or people who have lived there their whole lives to start getting active and getting outside.
And I love you guys because I'm a biker and a walker myself. So everything you do just really speaks to me. And I know firsthand, not every place I've lived has had anybody coordinating any of those things. I've had to go down a walk down an ugly old street sometimes, but you guys make it something people want to do.
Yeah, I think so.
You had the anniversary officially, 35th year, November 29th. So can you start at the beginning, 35 years ago, I guess that's 1988.
Sure.
How did all this get off the ground to begin with?
So Trailnet, we started really at the behest of the mayor at the time. Mayor Shamel was looking to a group to help get started the Riverfront Trail. And so he pulled together a group, and that group would become Trailnet. And so it was a couple of engineers, people who loved to be on bikes that helped establish that trail.
When you say Riverfront Trail, was the original idea just, a trail along the riverfront?
Right, and also to take advantage of, back in the day, there was the Rails to Trails funding, and that's still there, to convert abandoned railroads into trails. And so Trailnet did a lot of that work in the beginning, establishing about 21 miles to start. So you've been in St. Louis long enough that you remember the old Chain of Rocks Bridge. That was a project of Trailnet's to convert that from its dilapidated state into the longest bicycle and pedestrian connection.
I said I'm a biker. I have ridden my bike over that several times, and it's just fantastic.
Well, great.
And also then, just the history of it, thinking that it was Route 66 at one time.
And have you been to Grant's Trail? That's another popular trail.
No, I haven't. Tell me about that.
Trailnet built the first 6 miles of Grant's Trail, and it's a really great collaboration. It shows that, so when we first were building trails, We helped establish the rail banking and getting those trails and those partnerships going with the city or the county where the trails were located. But later, we advocated for the creation of a taxing district, so sales taxes could help pay for trails, and that created Great Rivers Greenway. And so now the Grants Trail is part of Great Rivers Greenway, and they help do some programming and maintenance along with St. Louis County.
Justin, I was going to ask about that because I know there's Trailnet, Great Rivers Greenway, and I think there are a couple of organizations that I guess you all work together in some way, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've been working really hard to continue fostering. I mean, like Cindy said, Great Rivers Greenway and Trailnet have been tied together since the inception of the Great Rivers Greenway sales tax, and they do a lot of work to get people outside, walking and biking. They're creating this network of trails that is imperative to connecting St. Louis, which is a big part of our mission. So we work pretty closely together on a day-to-day basis, yeah.
Does it matter how many people use it? Here's what I mean by that. I actually live in Alton, Illinois, and I do the bike trails or the trails along the rivers a lot. And they're beautiful and gorgeous. And there are times in the summer that I'm riding my bike 3 or 4 times a week, and I don't see tons of people. In a way, I'm glad that it's not too crowded. But I guess what I'm getting at is, what am I getting at?
Well, I would offer, Steve, that so as our name implies, so we used to build the trails, and now we really focus on the sidewalks and those connections, those last mile connections.
Right.
So maybe you want to get to the trail without having to get in your car, put it on a bike rack, and park at a trailhead. So Trailnet, we're hoping to create this more robust system that you can get from A to B without having to get in your car. So if you want to be on a nature trail and biking, maybe you could get there without having to get into your car.
Right,
so
that
I
makes
think,
a lot of sense.
Yeah. And
also, I'm wondering just the message, you're talking about a healthy lifestyle. Not everyone should, but not everyone has a healthy lifestyle. So I'm also thinking maybe the numbers really don't matter as long as there are people using it. Maybe if 90% of the people don't use it, maybe that's not that important.
Well, so I think one of the things you may be noticing is if people aren't using the trail systems, or something we talk about a lot is bike lanes, protected bike lanes specifically. If people aren't using those things, it might be because they aren't connected to the places that they live and work yet, or
Right.
because that culture is still being developed in the area. And so that's a lot of the work we're doing, is if we keep building protected bike lanes, if we keep connecting these trails and transportation networks together, eventually people are going to see them outside of their houses or outside of their workplaces, and they're going to say, looks like an awesome option for me to get outside and to maybe get on a bike for the first time in a long time.
Right, I guess, yes, just making it appealing looking might motivate people to give it a shot when they never thought they would before.
Yeah.
Right.
And making it appealing looking attracts people to come to the city of St. Louis.
And is there any way, maybe there's not, how do you know, and maybe it's not important how many people are using it, but do you try to do you have any way to know how many people use it, or is that important?
well, Great Rivers Greenway they do track the numbers. Trailnet, we do an annual bike ped count every year, so we know where we follow a system and we do that count every year. So we know where the numbers are growing. And so we do keep track of that. The other thing about having this network of protected bike lanes, sidewalks, and trails, there's also an economic impact too. And so
What
you
do you
can
mean by
easily, you can measure that as well. So people on foot and on bikes spend more money in a location than people passing through in their cars. And so there is an economic impact as well, and that can be measured.
Justin, do you guys take inspiration? Are there any other parts of the country that kind of do what you do that inspire you or that you kind of model after?
Yeah, definitely. We screened a documentary last year and invited a lot of people out for a documentary called The Street Doc, I think. The Street Project. And one of the organizations that was featured pretty heavily in there is Transportation Alternatives in New York City. So a lot of the bigger cities, for obvious reasons, are a little bit further along on working on these transportation networks. So Chicago, New York City, Seattle and Portland have really good stuff going on, and they've all been, I think, inspirations for us when we're looking maybe not to reinvent the wheel, but is there a precedent set in another part of the country that we can borrow from?
Yeah, and it must be interesting. You mentioned New York, which, I got a picture of this urban area. So you're dealing with people from all different kinds of places in the urban area. You might have somebody out in the suburbs that has a half-acre yard compared to someone that lives downtown in a 20-story building. So do you kind of have to, do you have to consider all that? Because people's lifestyles are different and maybe different things appeal to different people? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So the work that we do the advocacy work. So we make sure that the laws and policies that are out there are going to support people regardless of where they live. Most recently, we passed hands-free legislation along with our statewide partners. So Missouri is the 49th state to finally say, you know what, we shouldn't text and drive. And so that's going to make it safer for everybody.
The 49th state?
Yes, not the 50th, but the 49th. So that type of work, it doesn't matter where you live, it is going to benefit you to feel safer when you're not inside a car and when you are in a car. And so we do that work as well. We do some planning work, and so working with rural communities. You were just talking earlier about Main Street and Alton, and so in rural areas around the Main Street, they like to be able to have more walkability and bikeability there, or getting their kids to school. Some children in rural areas still are looking to be able to walk or bike to school and be able to do that safely.
But when it comes in an urban area too, connecting the connection and making things street friendly makes a big lifestyle difference.
Big time. Yeah, we talk about the streets. Our kind of vision, our slogan is streets for all, and I'm always careful to say that when we talk about streets, we're not just talking about the pavement that cars drive on. We're talking about everything on the right of way, sidewalks, places, if restaurants have tables outside, or cafes, places where you're waiting for your bus or your train to come. So there's all kinds of your life that are impacted by what's happening on the streets. And if we can find a way to make that friendlier for human beings, for the residents of an urban area, for example, it makes their life better, it makes them happier, it makes them more likely to spend more time in a place, and it makes us more likely as the St. Louis region to attract more people from other places.
Is that as complicated as I might think it would be? I mean, do you have to experiment? I mean, just because you have an idea how to make something more accessible or friendly, do you have to kind of experiment to see if it works first?
Well, I mean, there is an evidence base. It's scientific. Engineers do the research, and they say they narrow it down to what kinds of solutions are out there. But Trailnet does do some traffic calming pop-ups where we put out some temporary things for a day to test it out.
Oh, really?
See how people react, see how cars react, and see if we can make it safer and make people feel more comfortable and intend to walk and bike more often.
Mm-hmm. I have it in my notes here that you work with like community leaders, people in government. Is everybody really open to it and willing to do what you want? In fact, why don't you think about that for a minute? I bet that's a long question.
Can we hypnotize people?
That would help, wouldn't it? We need to take a break, but we'll be back more about Trailnet after this on City Corner.
Vengo de Honduras. Ya tenía 19 años y no tuve el tiempo de entrar a high school por mi edad. De repente miré un flyer donde decía, termine su high school, y en letras grandes español. Dije yo, ¿será posible?
Yo estoy muy orgullosa porque sí luchó por sacar su diploma.
Este proceso yo creo que no lo hubiese terminado sin la ayuda de mi mamá y de mi hermana. La educación es muy importante y estoy haciendo un futuro mejor para mi hijo.
Encuentra clases gratis para adultos cerca de ti en completatudiploma.org.
Oh, have you seen that piece on the Tiffany neighborhood on STL TV?
No.
Let me show you.
My wife and I were looking for homes. We lived in the city all of her life, and there's just a different energy when you're in the city.
Keep up with what's happening in your neighborhood. Watch STL TV. Be in the know.
Visitors and residents love the St. Louis Zoo because it's free. There's a train, a carousel, opportunities to make new friends, and plenty of fun learning experiences with the animals 363 days a year. So come and experience St. Louis.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
There's so many reasons to love St. Louis, you can't pick just one.
What I love about St. Louis is the 79 unique neighborhoods and 108 beautiful city parks, including Forest Park, which is actually larger than Central Park in New York, and the gorgeous Tower Grove Park right here.
And there's always something new to experience, no matter the time of day or the season. So come and experience St. Louis.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. We're talking with Cindy Metz and Justin Seaton from Trailnet, which is celebrating its 35th year. And I was kind of laughing when you just saw the segue of our show with all those cars. That's the intro to the show is sort of anti-Trailnet.
There was some intensity there, for sure.
No way.
You had just asked me if everybody buys into the vision.
Yeah, because you talk to politicians, business people, the average guy on the street.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
And well, I would say that at a high level, everybody wants sort of the same thing. They want a safe community where they feel safe, where their kids are safe, where they can get to from A to B easily and comfortably. But I think sometimes that when it comes to the trade-offs to get there, there's some disagreement, you know. But
right, and that's maybe your job to...
Yes, to help educate and inform them about these things are tested. These are some ways that we can slow things down. So perhaps you're familiar with like a traffic circle.
Right.
That's the kind that some people are confused by them, but
I'm all
you
for
can't
them.
argue that they slow people down.
They work.
And you keep moving.
They work. They're the best.
Great.
Hey, I've got a little video. This is, I think, from your has something to do with your Calm Street program.
Yes.
At Louisiana Street, I guess, or Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't we take a look and you just tell us what we're looking at.
Oh, this is great. So this is Louisiana in the Dutchtown area of St. Louis. And this is a project that started actually more than 8 years ago, where we met with the community members to help them identify what their vision is for safety. So what could we do to make things safer for them? What would the changes on the street that they'd be looking for? So this is going to show you some of the tools that we use, like curb extensions. There's the traffic circle we just chatted about. And so you can see that the cars have to move around that, and everybody makes their individual choice of where they're heading. It does accommodate things like buses, emergency vehicles, but it slows things down for sure.
There has been some controversy about that. Only I just know that I've heard of people that think it's a bad idea. I read on Facebook, which
Right.
doesn't mean anything.
Or next door.
But I know from my personal experience, because there are several roundabouts that I use when I come to St. Louis, and every one roundabout I've ever used improved traffic from the time before and works beautifully, in my opinion. I don't care what all those people on Facebook say, they work.
Yeah, we've got an advocate in Steve. I love that.
Right here. No,
Yeah,
that's
I think
great.
one of the things that's cool about the Louisiana Avenue Calm Street project is that there's a lot of engineering and design best practices that they got to try out on this 1.1 mile stretch. So as you walk or bike or even drive the corridor, you can see intersection to intersection, things look a little different. And so they can kind of measure how quickly people are going in certain stretches over the next few years maybe, and as they're getting ready to build on to the next segment of Louisiana, because there will be additions to this Calm Street, they can decide which of these things is working, how can we improve upon these designs, and then how can we extrapolate them out to the St. Louis region as a whole.
One thing I read in your stuff, which I thought was really interesting, you kind of explained why we're stuck with all these wide streets, and I'd never really thought of that before. There's a little history there.
Yeah.
Times have changed. Explain that.
Absolutely. Well, so St. Louis was built for a lot more people than we have right now.
Right.
Probably closer to 1 million. And so we've got big, wide streets. We have a history of planning for cars and not really planning for people. So the years of planning, the decisions that have prioritized cars and also prioritized neighborhoods that have resources compared to neighborhoods that don't. So I think Justin can talk a little bit about how Ward Capital has reinforced this ongoing problem that we have in
explain what Ward
some
Capital
communities.
is.
Yeah, Ward Capital is a system in the city of St. Louis where a portion of the sales tax is distributed to each ward to be used for infrastructure improvement projects. And it's kind of a piecemeal way of making fixes to streets and sidewalks where we should be thinking about the network as a whole. Can somebody get from their house to their job safely and easily if they're passing through 4 different wards that are using that money in different ways or not using that money at all?
And one thing I really like about your whole concept too, it helps people in 2 ways, physically and mentally.
Yeah, I think
right?
So. Yeah. One thing I like to think about is these, I just had a big brain fart. But yeah, it does. People, I know from personal experience, biking as a bike commuter, biking to and from work makes me feel better when I get to work. I also see more of the city. I feel more connected to the place that I live, and I feel healthier.
You can eat twice as much dessert.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
I think we have another video, and this is your rides program. Explain what that is.
Well, we have a rides program, both classics rides and community rides that we do throughout the year. So our classics rides are typically longer distance rides. Some of them are timed, and they're maybe for more serious bicyclists or people who want to get back out there and work a little harder. And then our community rides are a way for us to give basically guided tours of the St. Louis area with the help of docents and tour guides. I talked about that in the video at the beginning.
Have you got enough money?
Oh, we could always do it, yeah. Well, it's the end of the year, and it is giving season, so certainly at trailnet.org is where folks can find out more about us and find a link to give. We raise money through a variety of ways. Our rides can be sponsored, so if a corporation wants to sponsor a ride, we have that availability as well as membership.
But just the average person making a little donation matters.
Oh, absolutely. We have about 2,000 members.
Why would someone want to become a member?
Why would somebody want to become a member? I'm going to kick that over
to my
good friend Justin here.
Yeah, a number of reasons. Membership allows people to donate directly to our mission. So there's a lot of things that we do that aren't grant funded, and we need membership and individual donations to fund, say, our advocacy work in the city of St. Louis. Also, members get benefits like discounts on rides, some free rides, a membership T-shirt, all kinds of things come.
Well, we've talked about kind of the past and present.
T-shirt.
Did you bring me
That's
a
the
T-shirt?
I did. This is the current Trailnet membership.
Oh, that's
T-shirt.
nice.
If you wanted to see, it'll change next year.
We've talked about the present and the past. What have you got on your future plans? Probably a lot, I'm guessing.
Yes, we do. Well, I had mentioned earlier about the hands-free legislation, and so we did secure some funding to do some ongoing education for the public about what this hands-free law is, what it means to drive hands-free, and also to help educate young drivers with some driver's education. And so we have that on deck. We'll continue to advocate at the city for spending Board Bill 120, allocated $40 million to safer streets, and we're very excited about that, but we need to stay on top of it and look for how the city is actually going to spend that funding. Obviously, you've got a picture of us. That's when Mayor Jones signed Board Bill 120. It's a historic investment of $40 million into safer streets, but we have to stay on top of it and continue to ask questions and push for the priorities to be people that need it most.
Well, how do you grade yourself for what you've done so far and the progress you've made and where you're heading?
Well, I'm going to brag and say that 2023 has been an A+ year because the $40 million being advocated, the advocacy that we've done in the city, in the county, the funding that we've secured heading into our future, I think that we have, with a tiny little staff of less than 10 people, I think we've accomplished a lot.
You kind of tossed us a softball there. I think anybody would grade themselves well, but seriously, this year has been an unprecedented year for Trailnet, so it's really exciting. We have a lot of momentum.
Did the pandemic kind of have a positive effect? You know, I think that motivated a lot of people in a lot of different areas to get out and do things, not just on your end.
I do think that they had an opportunity to experience streets that were closed off. They made more room for pedestrians. I don't know if you were in Forest Park where they closed off and areas of Forest Park from cars.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Okay.
I could talk to you 35 more years about your 35 years.
Oh, great. Well, trailnet.org, we appreciate being invited today.
Well, I hope people will use it and support it. And Cindy and Justin, thank you for explaining it, and continued success, because I think it really makes a difference in our lives. Go to info@trailnet.org and you can find out more about it. Support them mentally and financially in any way you can. Thank you both. I'm Steve Potter, and thank you for joining City Corner, and hope to see you next time. Bye.